All right, welcome. This is Jay Larson with the Idaho Technology Council. Thank you for joining us for our weekly podcast, Innovation Matters. Last week at Capital Connect, which took place almost exactly a week ago, we released the Idaho Deal Flow Report showcasing business growth and capital in Idaho in 2019. With over 150 deals and $4.4 billion of investment in Idaho business. We're going to talk with one of those today with Scott Fischer. One thing that's really interesting is that you take a look at what's going on because of COVID-19. It's kind of like if you're driving one of the mountain roads of Idaho and you're about ready to have a caution sign coming at you. And as you go, you always wonder, what's that caution sign going to say? Well, if it says change ahead, you're not really certain what that means, right? So, but what we'd like to do is talk about COVID-19 and how that's created new change. And 43% of full-time employees, according to a survey done by NBC, talked that most of them want to work from home or other parts after the pandemic. So many changes are coming our way. One of them is really in capital. So we have invited Jack Boren with Epic Ventures, which is an awesome VC firm, to join us today to be able to talk about capital and how it's impacting Idaho. And Jack, for full disclosure, I've known Jack since he was just a little man, and before he actually went to Boise High, where he was an academic elite, as well as a star on their lacrosse team. Jack, welcome to Innovation Matters.
Thank you, Jay. It's great to be here, and really excited about all you guys are doing to support the ecosystem. For a little bit more color there. Jay's known me long enough that the thought of knowing someone for a long time is no longer a net positive for me. I'm sure he knows how I was as a kid, so
well, Jack
still puts up with me a little bit.
Oh, absolutely, Jack. You're wonderful, man. Hey, this has been so cool. I've seen watch your growth with. You left Boise High, went down to University of Utah, got on the staff, I think, as an intern at Epic, and now you've just doing amazing things, and the stuff that you've done there, the analytics you've brought there. Talk a little bit about Epic Ventures, and what Epic Ventures does.
Absolutely. So the short on Epic Ventures is we're a 25-year-old early stage venture capital fund. We're based in Salt Lake City, Utah, and if you were to rewind the clock to 1995, when I guess we were started in '94, but in that time when we were started, the tech ecosystem in Utah was a lot different. You kind of had two stalwarts with Novell and WordPerfect, and kind of a budding entrepreneurship environment. Anyway, there was a little bit of capital, not a lot, a couple of funds that had been kicked around. And we were really one of the first major capital providers to come in and really plant our flag. And I say major capital providers, true pure play venture capital funds to come in and plant our flag and start investing at a broader scale. So, fast forward to today, Utah is a pretty impressive ecosystem. I won't say that's, largely because of us. We're a small part of that broad story, but now there are a variety of different funds, lots of avenues to raising capital, and a bunch of really impressive technology businesses, some of which we've been able to, we've been privileged to work with throughout the years. So back to today, we're a standard early stage fund. We consider ourselves kind of seed to Series B investors. We write $500,000 to $5 million checks. We're supportive of our businesses going forward. We consider ourselves value add. That term, I don't know, probably gets overused by VCs, but to us, that means if you take an investment from us, we'll plug you into our investor network, our executive mentorship network. We'll help you out with some client introductions where it makes sense. We'll help you out with corporate development practices and just ultimately help you as you think through scaling your business. So why it's relevant to Boise is due to my background. I'm obviously quite biased to the area. I'd love to find a way to be back there long term. More on that later. But Epic has made a couple of investments in the space. We're actively looking for more companies to invest in Boise, both in our current fund and as we go out to raise our next one. It'll be a big part of our story. So anyway, that's a short on us and how we're thinking about the space.
That's a fantastic. The reputation you have, Epic has is great. And so It's great. As we continue to look at how we're going to grow the Idaho ecosystem, at the core of that, Jack, is always how the entrepreneur fits and how they're willing to take risks and finding those entrepreneurs that you and the teams you'd want to invest in, because I'd imagine that's probably the biggest thing you look at. So how do you think the entrepreneurial community has been over the last 10, 15 years?
Hmm. It's a great question. I think we're getting close to an inflection point. I wouldn't say it's quite there yet, but as I contemplate what makes a good ecosystem really start to hum, there are a couple of different factors. First and foremost, you got to have a couple to prime the pump, right? That scale their businesses in the ecosystem, that kind of do it the right way, raise from traditional venture partners, bring in a good team, scale to a meaningful exit, et cetera, et cetera. And that does two things. One, it creates a new band of mentors that can go out and tell you how to do it as a new entrepreneur. It brings in people from the outside community into the area. So you see that a bunch with growth stage businesses in Boise that they promote some within and they hire some without, and that brings new talent into our area. And then the third thing is they tend to be training grounds, right? That's twofold. One, you get people that build their career inside one of these organizations, and then once there's an exit, they say, well, shoot, those guys did it and I was part of it. I think I could do it myself, maybe with a little bit of help. So they spin out and start their own things. And also as startups scale in the ecosystem, these proving or training grounds are really good places to poach talent from, right? Because you've got people that are, understanding of what it means to build, let's say, software businesses, what it means to build out a SaaS focused sales team, right? And at different sizes of ACVs or contract sizes, how you should structure that. And so those are all kind of things that factor into it. And just in the last several years, you've seen some of that starting to prove out. I think we're in the early stages of it. But you asked how the state of things is. I think it's really positive, and we're moving towards an interesting inflection point.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. One of the companies you've invested in was kind of the serial entrepreneur we've had with Faisal Shah, right? With Aptitex. It takes those people who've done several things like Faisal has. It takes several other people who might come into the ecosystem who have been grown up. And what's interesting is, like, for instance, what took place at Cradle Point is, you basically have HP and you have a lot of other people have the ideas, but then you have somebody that's going to help scale the company, like George Mulhern and the team he's amassed. And now you've got some great things, and you just have this ecosystem that's starting to percolate more. So you see that as really positive, but you really see, but I hear what you're saying is that we're at an inflection point is coming very soon where we're going to really have some really hockey stick stuff taking place in Idaho, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I'd point to an announcement that we saw today, right, with Matt Rissell finally announcing his appointment as an EIR at Summit. You see everything that they were able to build at T-Sheets, and the outcome they were able to drive towards, plus now even a further vote of confidence. It just brings a lot of recognition to the ecosystem, and it's yet a further proof point that there's some people you can really point to in Boise or the broader Idaho technology ecosystem. Matt would probably be upset because I said Boise and they're an Eagle. But there's some people you can point to that would be just stellar mentors, right? That have done it right, and have built to incredible outcomes.
Yeah, and that Summit's a good point about that, Jack, because it's just not the investment they made, within T-Sheets. There's about 2 or 3 other deals that took place to be able to help Summit. So that helps them grow. And it's like maybe CVC or you guys will have some other bigger deals. There's going to be all these other type of things. So the ecosystem has to be rich in multiple points, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
So what do you think on this whole thing? What do you see? I see as I really liked Epic, and it's one of the things on your website says partners for the next big thing. What does that mean?
The next big thing. Well, it's about as ambiguous as it possibly could be to encompass as many businesses as possible.
Yeah, right.
it's funny. It's reflective of our investment approach, right? And by and large, we invest in software businesses, and there's also a bit of a trend towards enterprise software platforms. But some of our biggest successes have been outside of that. Probably our best known business we've invested in is a company called Ancestry.com. Yeah. It's been 20 something years since we seeded that deal. My partner, Nick F. Stratus, did it. And at this 21 years ago is an incredible outcome, right? It's a household name now. They do so many interesting things. And that's kind of out of our core thesis today, right? So when we say partners for the next big thing, I hope that what somebody on our website will come away with is we're really just looking for interesting entrepreneurs with a clever take on their particular market space. We might not be experts in it. If we're not experts, we'll plug you into some experts, because I guarantee we're connected to some people that really know it well, and we're flexible on what it means to be a partner, right?
Well, that's great, and I think that you're always looking for really good teams, but you really have to have these innovative ideas, and you never know what's going to be the next big thing. And so, no, I truly appreciate that. I think that's awesome. So, kind of the last question, Jack. This would be a great one. Talk about what Epic Ventures plans are, maybe, or what you're seeing happening in the Boise marketplace in Idaho in the next 5 years. What's Epic going to be doing in Boise?
Mm-hmm. Well, if I have my way, which we'll see, but if I have my way, first and foremost, I'll be up there. I think it's important. I spend a lot of time in the ecosystem, but there's a difference between coming up once a month for a couple of days and like having it be your home base, right? So I think that's important, both from the perspective of deploying capital and from the perspective of just helping out where we can, right? Out of sight, out of mind is a very literal term, and I think it's important to plant a real flag. So I think that's one of the key steps. Probably the most important step is we're just going to be deploying a lot of capital up there. We're really excited about some of the potential on the horizon. We're really, really impressed with what we've seen both from our partners and from our portfolio companies. And I'd highlight what Faisal and his team have been able to do at Aptitex there. We're excited, right? So, what I would expect from any, if I'm an entrepreneur in Boise and I'm trying to figure out how to capitalize my business, I'm going to see a lot of opportunities to do so come across my table, and we're going to be one of those. And what you can trust in that is that, well, one, we're a real venture capital fund, so we're going to look like any other institutional investor, right? So the next round of financing nobody's going to be freaked out by us being in there. Two, you're going to get plugged into a really interesting network, right? Even if we don't invest, right, we'll be helpful there. We've worked with, I think the last count was 486 partners at other venture funds throughout the last 25 years. A lot of them are still active. And we've deployed, our businesses have collectively raised, I think the number is $6 billion. Don't quote me on it, but it's a lot, right? And the point is, you're tapping into a really interesting network, and we're excited to help out, right, where we possibly can. And so we're looking for local partners, friends, like-minded individuals. We're looking for potential portfolio companies, and look, we're fundraising as well, right? So anybody that wants to be a part of the engine is, we love to partner.
I like that, Jack. So the big part what I like even is that, we've had Highway 12 here, Mark Sullen, obviously George Mulhern came up through that as well after he left HP, but really having the focus and the priority and the mindset, because you're right, having you come here like you have been has been fantastic, but even think about how that can be amplified if we have you here and we really have some focus and more focus here, because that inflection point will even come faster because of that, I believe. So that's great. So anything else you'd like to add, Jack, as we any other pearls of wisdom from Jack Boren?
We've run out of my pearls, and they're probably not even my pearls, right? I'm borrowing them from other people, but I will just say, as a final note, it's really great to work with the local service providers and advocacy groups. Jay, I'd single you guys out. Tiam's on this call as well. All the guys, him and Nick at Boise Startup Week, local law firms, the SVB guys. It's nice to see that real infrastructure coming around, and those kind of participants make it easier for a fund like ours to get comfortable with an ecosystem at a broader scale, right? Instead of just doing one or two investments kind of thing. So, congrats on what you're up to, and thanks for letting us be a part of it.
Appreciate it, Jack. And we're excited to see what Epic Ventures and what you do up here in the future. And I very much appreciate what you've done so far. And yeah.
Jay, if your neighbor's house comes for sale, let me know. I'm touring, so. Yeah.
Well, everybody get that out. Let Jack, if there's a great house on the market in the east, southeast end, let Jack Boren know, right? So
I'm a mama's boy, so it has to be in the east end, right? It's got to be close to the parents.
Yeah,
I want to go up on Sunday for supper.
Yeah, there you go. So that's really good. So, hey, Jack, thanks so much, man. We really appreciate it. You have a good day, and we'll have you on in the future. All right.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jack. Very much appreciate Jack Boren. Now we get the opportunity to talk, kind of shift gears here, where we have Scott Fischer, CEO of Milt Organics, and Scott's been doing a fantastic job with Milt. Scott, welcome to Innovation Matters.
Thank you, Jay. And it's the team that executes at Milt. So, well, pass that congratulations onto them.
Well, thank you for doing that, Scott. So this is kind of fun. Tell you've been doing. I just want to start maybe a little bit different with you. Milt has really had kind of a butter substitute, right? That's been organic and plant-based. Now you really expand out in cheese. What's going on in the new product line? How you do this, and how you develop new products?
From the beginning in 2008, Signia Rapp, who is our founder, started making food to address some health concerns that she had, and food was part of it. And the butter was the first product that she made, and it was a little bit before its time. She did a great job. My predecessor, Mick Carlson, did a great job in gaining distribution for that product. And when I came in, we really tried to do a reset in terms of making sure we understood what is our company, what's our mission, what are we trying to do, and where does butter fit in that, and what else is it in our mission that we can do for customers. And our mission is to inspire people to strive for better, starting with the food that's on their plate. And right now, that food is super delicious butter. And now we've launched cheese. And that cheese is made from red lentils and chickpeas from northern Idaho. It's locally sourced. It's better for you. It's better for your food and the environment. And that's right in alignment with what we're doing as a mission statement.
So on this cheese, the new cheese that you have, that's plant-based, is it? So if I put it on top, and on top, it will melt just the way it does. It will do it has great taste. I've heard. I haven't tasted it yet, but somebody told me today that it's absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, that's great. We get a lot of that, and it's not without a huge amount of work, Jay. The people we have working with us in research and development include the Food Innovation Center and our own director of operations, Jim Linford, who was the COO at Garden Burger, the very first plant-based meat company in the United States. And he's got a wealth of experience in food development. We spent a good part of a year on our first SKUs. And that is, as I said, a red lentil cheddar and a chickpea-based mozzarella. And there is not just taste, there's texture, and there's color, and how it cooks on the stove, and how it interacts with your food, so that it's not just one item. So really managing the formula of all of those different aspects of a food to make it something that it may not be our job to mimic cheese exactly, but it is our job to make a food that is incredibly delicious and functions very much like cheese on a pizza, or if you wanted to put a slice of cheese on a sandwich or a hamburger, it's going to do that job for you in ways that are healthier and that are 100% plant-based.
So the same properties that come out would be from a regular cheese would be the same. So that's absolutely great. So let's shift gears a little bit. So I have it down, in our deal flow report that we put out. We actually showed in 2018 that Milt Organic received $1.85 million in that one. In 2019, actually it's different, 2.5 million in 2018 and 1.85 million in 2019. So you've received what, about $4.35 million over the last couple of
Yes.
years. Yeah. Talk about how you raise capital, how important that has been, obviously, to the growth of Milt Organic, and how focused you are as far as where you're getting your capital from.
Yeah, and Jack can probably concur with me on this, that every company is different. Their place in the life cycle and how far they are in productization and revenue. For us, we had tremendous distribution, and we had a product that needed some tweaking to get it to a place where it would appeal to a wide range of folks. We had some promotions and pricing issues that we knew we needed to work out. But what we did in the beginning, Jay, was get the team together. And as a team, we went through every single aspect, from freight to shipping to product quality, our ingredient vendors, our brokers, our pricing, our marketing. And we looked at everything and penciled in where we were and where we wanted to be, and then what it would look like were we to achieve all of our goals and where we wanted to be. And we pitched that to an investor. And the first 2.5 million was a sort of a, let's see what you can do. And we set some targets, and they were stretch targets, but we thought that they were achievable. And when we got through that first year, we had an increase in sales of 88%. And that was after 2 years where growth had literally fallen to zero. And we knew that we were onto something. We changed the taste of the butter to something creamy and buttery. And we added new packaging that appealed to a wider range of buyers. And when we got finished with that first year and we checked off so many of the targets that we had set for ourselves, it gave confidence in a new round of investors who saw that if given the capital to grow, that we knew how to grow it. And that building that credibility, whether you're a startup company or an established company just looking to grow revenues, you've got to be able to show that you can do something with the capital that you get in order to get follow-on capital. And that's worked out very well for us.
Well, and you've done some different things with equity versus loan and other ways. I mean, how's that balanced out? Because I know a lot of times the challenge is trying to keep, as you keep on going down round after round, trying to keep the right type of equity within the company to its founders and other key people. How has that worked out so far with the equity versus what you've received from Sage Growth Capital?
Yeah. Sage Growth Capital is really a wonderful funding vehicle for the right companies. For us, we are now growing so fast. We're up 143% in the second quarter of 2020. Wow. And we are aiming for 100% growth for the year. We know that our valuation is growing day by day. And so we wanted to find something where we could use our own sort of company credibility to bring money on to grow, knowing that we were close to profitability. And April was our first profitable month ever in the company. And Sage Growth Capital literally gives us the cash to continue to grow, to fund marketing programs and to fund new products, knowing that we are at that point where we will generate positive net profits to pay that money back. And that's a far less expensive avenue for us compared to equity. Now, equity rounds will come as we grow faster, and as our trailing 12 months continues to grow, our valuations will start to grow, and it'll be a lot less expensive for us to raise that equity. So we look at Sage as very much of a bridge funding that helps us get to the next stage.
Your background's been in finance kind of too, so you kind of came into this whole equation at the right time, Scott, don't you think?
In many ways, that was a bit of an anchor. There's nothing about calculating return on investment that helps when deciding what food to put out. But in the ways that really matter, it is having the ability to translate goals into actions and the cost of those actions and the anticipated return. And that is return on investment in many ways. And so I think what I brought to the company was discipline around really creating concrete actions. And when you have concrete actions, then everyone's very clear about what it is we're going to do. And it's really pretty easy to figure out how much that's going to cost you. And then you have to set targets for what that's going to get you. And again, if you do that, that's a golden ticket for investors. They literally want to know the same thing. What are you going to do? And I felt like that was my contribution, but I brought in a team of folks, one who's Andy Gustafson, who came from Albertsons as their vice president of merchandising. And Andy is one of the best merchandisers in the country, and we're so lucky to have him. He handled the retail and merchandising sales side. Richard Coe, who came from Kellogg, as their 19 years in their supply chain, does a phenomenal job on the supply chain side. And of course, Jim Linford from Gardenburger. Each of them understood what actions needed to take place. And that sort of extreme communication back and forth, where we hold each other accountable for what needs to get done, I think it's essential in a growing business, certain entrepreneurial companies, to make sure that your efforts are going to yield a return that investors will love.
Yeah, you really have to have the people that can do and execute on certain things, because sometimes innovation is a big part of what you do, but you need to have people that execute. So it sounds like you've amassed a great team, Scott. Let me bring up another thought here. I remember a couple of years ago, I was in a group that had some major investors from the Boise Angel Fund, and their discussion was there are two really big returns that have come as the Boise Angel Fund has looked to invest in companies, early stage companies in the Boise area. And they obviously brought up Cradle Point, but they also brought up Milt Organic. I thought that was great. And you take a look at some of the return that's been able to be offered on certain things on early stage investments. So
we're riding on the back of a lot of hard work before our team arrived at Milt. They all did a phenomenal job. This is stage 2 of the continuing growth, and we also owe a huge debt to Galena Capital, who has been instrumental in getting us the kind of info that we needed to put together those game plans and continue that sort of funding process to get us to stage 3.
Yeah, I just met recently with Galena Capital, and they were very engaged and very complimentary of the things that are going on over there. So congratulations on bringing the right type of advisory type things as well as the right team. So that's great, Scott. Anything else? So where do you see Milt in the next couple of years?
We've done so many amazing things with a single product, butter. We're now leveraging what we've learned in how to market butter into the retail, food service, commercial, and private label. We're now going to do the same thing with cheese, and then continue to expand our SKUs into dairy related areas. And I see that our growth will accelerate from here. It's been a pretty amazing ride. COVID has been a challenge for everybody personally and professionally. Luckily for us, our biggest challenge in COVID was making sure that we had a supply. But as we move forward, we're now challenged with how many really quality products we can put out, again, that will fulfill the mission of we want to improve people's lives by putting better food on their plate. And so we've got a lot to do. We're really looking forward to it.
Yeah, that's awesome. I have a grandson that's allergic to dairy products, and my daughter-in-law, I was in her place and she had some melt butter in there, and it gave me great opportunity to be able to taste it. It's a fantastic product and healthier. I mean, she was raving about it, and the products used. So Scott, congratulations on the fantastic success and the growth that's taking place. And we will look forward to having you on again as we can talk about future successes that are going to be taking place for Melt Organic. So
thank you, Jay. It was a pleasure being on.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Scott. Appreciate it. Scott Fischer with Melt Organic. We now shift over to Tiam Rastegar, who is the executive director over the wonderful Trailhead. Tiam, thank you for joining us today.
Hey, Jay, it's good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, this is great. I don't think that there's anything that's doing more for the connection of the entrepreneur, access to capital, the nexus points that's taken place that needs to be able to grow these connections than what Trailhead does. So tell us a little bit about what Trailhead does, Tiam.
Well, thank you very much for that, Jay. At the end of the day, Trailhead achieves many of its milestones through partnerships like with ITC. And so as a housekeeping item, before I tell you about Trailhead, I just wanted to take a moment and congratulate you on releasing the 2020 deal flow report. I thought both Blake and Allison did a wonderful job moderating that event. More importantly, the data that you guys track in that deal flow report, it's so important and it's so useful to other stakeholders in this ecosystem to measure and track the success of our ventures statewide. So, you talk about Trailhead success, right back at you. Again, we achieve our success through other partners. And so, at the heart of it, Trailhead is a nonprofit startup incubator. So we operate 2 locations in downtown Boise. One of our locations called Base Camp. It's tailored towards entrepreneurs in their early stage with an idea. And Base Camp lends itself, it's a fairly affordable $50 a month hot desk where you can incubate, you can facilitate this idea and really vet it and see if this idea has the legs to become a product, and that you can then form an entity around and a team around. And so when you get to that point of entity formation and ideas are starting to form into prototypes and proof of concepts and MVPs, you graduate to our other location, which is called Trailhead North, which serves more later stage startups with private space and conference rooms, so on and so forth, really providing space for startups that now have grown beyond the original founder, the person who is really good at the widget. This founder has now surrounded themselves with other team members. So that's when they go to North. When they graduate North, you see impacts like we made last year with Love Every. So Love Every graduated out of North. I believe they had 19 employees at the time. They moved into another facility into downtown Boise. They're upwards of 65 employees to date. Wow. Another graduation we had last year was Natural Intelligence Systems, the AI spin out of Micron. Those guys also moved into their own office space in Bodo in downtown Boise.
I just saw that. That actually came out. Paul sent a deal out that said they just graduated. I mean, it was like this big thing, Tim. I think that was, this is you're getting this reputation of helping catapult companies and help them grow. I think that's fantastic.
That's what we're here for. We don't quite hand out diplomas yet, but we're, at the end of the day, we're here to support startups and entrepreneurs and help them sort of race through this valley of death when they're burning cash, they're working on ideas, there's no revenues. How can we all help accelerate that path and help them get to a path of revenue and profitability? And so, with that, you look at National Intelligence Systems and Love Every, those are just 2 of the few examples, also reflected in the deal flow report, but you also hear a lot about some of our alumni members, Killer Way, Plex Track, now over at Stage.0. There's been good news about Retrolux, and that's just to name a few. You add companies like Milt to that, and you really start to see the formation of a pretty healthy ecosystem that we're just fortunate and proud to be a part of.
Yeah, I just saw that Natural Intelligence just also joined Techstars, where Mark Sullen and Brad Feld, all those other guys started that whole thing. If that's quite the accomplishment for Natural Intelligence, which was part of that. And one thing that Tiam, how long have you actually been at Trailhead?
I've been there for 2 years now. I finished my tenure at Vacasa about 2 years ago and transitioned to the ED at Trailhead.
Yeah, and that is fantastic. You've done amazing stuff there. Congratulations on that. So talk a little bit about what's happened because with COVID-19 and Trailhead. What's because that's definitely impacted the way you do business. Talk about that.
Yeah, you can say that out loud. So, so just like every other business, we were faced with a shutdown. So we had to shut down our operations. The timing was hurt extra because our annual fundraiser was also planned for April. So as we shut down our operations, we experienced quite member attrition, quite a bit of member attrition, more than we expected. And so it put us in a bit of a precarious position, not knowing what's going to happen in the next few weeks and months, whether we were able to operate again or not. But, going back to partnerships, that's when our partners at KeyBank reached out to us. KeyBank was not our bank at the time. They were a partner of ours on a program that you're familiar with called You Lead Idaho. And so through that relationship, they reached out to us and offered us to help us with our Triple P application. And believe it or not, as a fairly small nonprofit that did not have a banking relationship with a large national bank, they came through for us. So, we were able to bridge the gap, if you will. We had to furlough some employees and reduce hours for others, really to tuck our tail and just survive the initial onslaught of this pandemic and the economic impact on our revenues. But we did so fairly quickly, and I gotta say, we came out of it pretty resilient. And so we're back up and running, fully operational. I gave up my desk to make room for others because now we have to socially distance and space the desks apart a little more. And so the good news is that the city of Boise, who helped started us 5 years ago, really at the epicenter of the genesis of Trailhead, renewed their commitment. So the city of Boise and CCDC renewed their tri-party agreement with Trailhead. And so, that was a huge vote of confidence, really telling us from our sponsorship side and the community side that we're needed to help rebuild this economy coming out of it. You think about the educational vertical and, places like Trailhead that are really centers for entrepreneurial activity. We tend to do well during recessions and right after recessions. And so we're positioning ourselves for that. All of our programs have gone digital. We've managed under 4 weeks, we've taken Boise Pitch Night remotely. We've taken Trailhead East fully remotely. That's our partnership with Idaho National Laboratory. You Lead Idaho is going remote. Boise Startup Week has gone digital. We announced that a couple of weeks ago, and that's going to be in October of this year.
Oh, that's fantastic. I know that it's interesting because if you take a look at what our conversation has been so far, it takes a community to be able to grow. I mean, it takes the city of Boise, it takes all of the type of things you were just talking about. It takes the entrepreneur that's willing to take risks. So you could have just taken this. I mean, if I think Milt Organics started in 2008, they could have easily been part of this whole ecosystem through Trailhead. Jack Boren, I know, will look at all these type of things and other investors to come in and take a look at what's happening. And what's really interesting is that you have also been very instrumental in Boise Startup Week. So what's taking place with Boise Startup Week, which is scheduled in October? Is it? I see you've already made an announcement. It's going to be virtual. So talk about that, Tiam.
Yeah, thanks, Jay. So Startup Week, on the heels of such a wildly successful year in 2019, the planning committee really found itself, in a moment of panic because the playbook we've executed in years past that helped grow this event to what it is today really wasn't applicable anymore. And so we had to make a hard choice because it takes about, 4 to 6 months to truly plan and execute this event. Meaning we didn't have the luxury of pondering whether this is going to be a digital or an in-person event. So we just decided to go all digital. And with that, we also, we sort of checked the pulse in the community. We reached out to our sponsors and said, hey, we're thinking about doing this. What's your take? This is the opportunity to talk us out of it. And it was quite the opposite. They talked us into it. They said, look, we need you to do this event. There's been other events and sponsorship opportunities for us to get engaged in the community, and we no longer have them this year. This is so important for you to do. At the same time, the STEM Action Center stepped up and matched $50,000 in another P3 matching agreement for Boise Startup Week. So the wheels started turning pretty quickly, and we realized that this is really an opportunity. And this is not a cliche spin, but if you think about our tagline this year for Boise Startup Week is be resilient. And so we look at resiliency really as a way to respond to adversity and use it as fuel for innovation. So if you think about Startup Week in the past, having been an in-person event really created a unique atmosphere, unique energy around 6 days and 140 events. Now we have to pivot that to a remote event, and the opportunity that we see that can help our ecosystem go to the next stage of maturity is we can break down these physical borders by going remote, meaning we can have attendees attending Startup Week and watch our pitch competitions and get engaged with our startup in our community from anywhere in the country. So we're no longer bound by that, the physical element of Startup Week in the past. So we're looking for ways to offset benefits or losses that you would otherwise have by taking such a in-person event and going remote.
Yeah, that's a challenge, and I love what you're doing with it. We're doing Develop Idaho, which is September 30th, and our Hall of Fame is October 27th. And we've actually done something, your resiliency that you're talking about. We're doing a deal with the Idaho Hall of Fame, and is that we're changing it a little bit. We're going to make it so we also recognize what we call Idaho pivot points. So companies that have made pivots because of COVID-19 to be able to meet customers' demands. And so we're actually having people share those stories with us so that we could talk about these stories on October 27th. So, but we'll work with you on some of those things, because I know you've probably watched several companies make some major pivots, right?
Absolutely, yeah. We're here to tell those stories, and we're here to help the ITC tell those stories.
Hey, Tiam, last question for you.
For it.
You've had 2 years under your belt. That gives you some pretty good time to be able to see all the things that are happening and the innovative economy in the Boise Valley here specifically, and in Idaho. Tell us how are we where you think we would be? Are you what couple things can we do to be able to accelerate and make things happen even stronger so they meet the TM register, so to speak?
Wow, that's a pretty high bar. I don't know if I want to share that on this call. I'm just kidding. Look, I think we have made great strides in the last 2, 5, and even 10 years, Jay, even under your leadership with the ITC. I know you had a 10-year anniversary. Trailhead, actually, in May, we had our 5-year anniversary. So when I look at this organization, I'm standing on the shoulder of giants here. There was people before me that led this organization, and they handed it off to me. I'm really looking at this as a, who do I hand it off to? What state does this organization need to be for it to go to the next level? And the answer is that that's in sync with where our community is as an ecosystem. So Trailhead is like in parallel growing to our ecosystem. And that said, I think we have proven that when the stakeholders in this ecosystem leave their swords at the door and do things in support of the entrepreneur, in other words, put the entrepreneur at the center of the ecosystem as the ultimate customer, and collaborate and work towards elevating them and giving them the tools to be successful, we can make things happen here in Boise. I mean, it's for no reason that Inc. magazine, picked up the story last year at Startup Week, flew out here, had their minds blown, went from a tiny little paragraph in that magazine to doing a 4-page exclusive on Boise. And it's no longer Boise is a cheap place to live, low cost of living. which are good traits to advertise, but it was heavily focused on, hey, you want to start a business? You need to pay attention to what's going on in Idaho and what's going on in Boise. And so that was a huge success for us and the ecosystem, not just Trailhead.
Yeah, it's great to see that ecosystem you're talking about, because what you've helped build here kind of shows like leaving the swords at the door, or the six shooter, so to speak, on the Western vernacular. Is that you see what Scott Fischer has done too, since he came back after his days with Micron and coming back to the area, and then Jack Boren.
It's amazing, Jay. So look, when I listen to Jack and Scott, they talk about assets like Sage Growth Capital, like Galena, like Stage.
Right.
They talk about assets that we didn't have previously. Now those assets are filling a gap. And so that is where our ecosystem is maturing. And that's music to my ears. You know, like I said, I know that Trailhead is successful when I hear stories like the one of Milt, that has found bridgeways to capital to enable it, you know, to still grow. So, yeah.
That's great. Tim, we're going to have you on again, as we would love to have you, Scott, and Jack, because this is a big discussion about growing the community, growing the ecosystem, and we really truly appreciate what you and what Trailhead has done to be able to help the innovative economy in Idaho. So thanks for all you do.
Thanks, Jay. I always remember 15 years ago, the first map of the ecosystem that I saw was from the ITC, and I didn't even know it then. But you showed me what an ecosystem can look like from the IO technology universe, and here we are 15 years later. So here's crazy. To another 10.
All right, sounds wonderful. Thanks, Tim.
Take care.
Thank you. We hope you all had a chance to see the Capital Connect conference, and as Tim talked about, we were very fortunate to have Blake Hansen and Allison Johnson, who lead that group, the Capital Connect group. It was live on the 11th, and you can see in recap on the ITC YouTube page. And don't forget to download your digital copy from the Idaho Deal Flow Report from idahotechcouncil.org. Join us next week when we discuss INL supercomputers with Eric Whiting, a division director. We also will talk a lot about big data and how that impacts with two businesses from Idaho. And we really appreciate you staying ahead of the change. This is Jay Larson with the Idaho Technology Council, keeping you connected with industry and government, because in Idaho, innovation matters. Have a great day.